All right, welcome back. In this video, I want to discuss conditional rendering. It's something that you are going to use all the time. Okay, so there's a number of different ways that we can conditionally render something. Okay, so I think one of the easiest ways, let's just start out using props. Okay, let's say I want to not show a button here from our previous example, right? So let's add a new prop and let's call this show. And it'll be type Boolean. Okay, and I'm just going to add it in here as well. Show, like so. Now what we can do here is we can check if we're supposed to actually show this element. Now it depends whether or not you want to hide the element or just not render it altogether. So let's just say we don't want it to render at all. One thing that we can do here is we can say, for example, if not show, this means if show is false, return null. Now, by returning null from our component, essentially nothing is going to end up getting rendered from it. So this is one simple way for us to not show. Now, if we go back to our app.ts, we're going to see that we have a bunch of errors because we added a new prop. And these are all properly typed, so they're all like, yo, dog, these are all wrong. Okay, so let's say we show this one, and I want to essentially hide these other ones. Like so, let's go ahead and save this. Oh, and we need to update this down here as well to use v.show, like so. And if we go back to our tab here, we can see that we only have one button here. And if we look at the actual DOM here, here's our root, and we actually literally only have one button here, which is pretty cool. Now, that's one way to do it, and this is a common way that I will use all the time. Just if something goes wrong, again, this is a function, so this is actually a really good way that if, let's say, some information, a prop or something in there is empty that's coming in, you could just return null and it'll stop execution of the function and nothing else will render. This is a way to get around certain errors that might happen if, for example, certain information isn't included in a prop. Okay. Now, the other way that we can do this, and this is a way that I use a lot, is I'm just going to kind of take some of this code out here. Let's say I'm just going to put a let show is equal to true. What we can do here is we can actually use a closure, right? So I'm going to put in two curly braces. That's a closure. And I can say show and two ampersands there. This statement basically says if show is true and whatever comes after next of it would evaluate to essentially a truthy type statement, then we want to make sure that we show our button here. And so I'm just going to go here and we're just going to create this real quick. And this is going to be show button for the text and the variant. Let's just make this success. And then show, this will be true here. And we need to wrap this value. Since this is a JavaScript value, it needs to be wrapped in a closure, right? It's not a string value. It's a Boolean. Okay. Now, if we go back to here, we see our show button, right? But now if I turn this to false, our button is gone. So I use this all the time as different ways to do stuff. There's another option here, and that is we can essentially create a variable. Let's just call this let button equal to if show like this. otherwise null. And then inside of our closure, we can put button right here, like so. So essentially what we're doing here is we're creating a new variable called button, okay? And then if show is a truthy statement, right? We're using the question mark here. This is kind of a shorthand way to write if else statement in JavaScript if you're not familiar with it. So basically we're checking, if this is truthy, the question mark says, okay, if it's truthy, then we want to assign a button to this variable. And again, under the hood, this looks like HTML, but it gets compiled essentially down into a function. And essentially this function will be stored on this, inside this button variable, which we can recall later. And then we have this colon here. And so after the colon, you put your falsy statement. And then, so if show is false, then we just want to have null here inside of this variable. And just like we talked about before on our components, if you return null from a component, then, or you input like a null value into a component somewhere like this, then just nothing ends up getting rendered, right? So I can save this like so. And our button is gone. And then if we just change this to true like so, our button is back. So these are 3 different ways that you can attack this type of situation. Now, there's actually at least one more. For example, you would just change the class that is on your component. If you have like some kind of hidden class, for example, there's a ton of them built into Bootstrap, but I'm not sure that we're going to get into that yet. I think maybe when we get into the more advanced React stuff, we might talk more about doing stuff that way. But you now know at least 3 different ways on how you can conditionally show a component. Okay? And I'll see you in the next video.